Welcome to Innovate, presents Entrepreneurs in Tech. Today we're delighted to have our guest, Lois Derechin, who is the CEO and founder of Nir-Yu. I like the name. I'm really very intrigued to find out more about Nir-Yu and what's behind the name, what really made you make that. Lois, thank you for joining us today on Entrepreneurs in Tech. And if you don't mind, give us a small or quick introduction about yourself and a bit of your insights and background.
Thank you, Bob.
My pleasure.
Thank you for having me on the podcast. Very excited to share my story and any insight that I can. Hoping to make this very fluid discussion. So as you said, I'm Lois Derechin. I am the founder or co-founder and CEO of a company that's called Nir-Yu. The story I want to share today is I have what I would call sort of an accidental expertise or multiple accidental expertise stories. The one I'm going to share today is it started back in the early 2000s. I started a first tech company out of necessity and accidentally discovered how to avoid what we call the remote death trap, which is the RTDT or remote team death trap is systemic failures that catch over 75% of companies that are trying to build remote teams and therefore cause failure in most of those projects. And this dates back to when I started first tech company called Jackby to ever raise U.S. venture capital funding, move to the U.S. and then get acquired. I said that easy, but it was a 14-year struggle. What we now do at Nir-Yu is we discovered a methodology in order for these projects to not fall in the death trap and to be successful. So for customers or for companies that are sort of in that death trap and that have found the inability to hire remotely and have teams working for them remotely, we help them do it successfully. Or for first-time entrepreneurs or people who are going to hire remotely for the first time, hire them do that so they can do that successfully.
Why the death trap, and how do you pull them out of it? I mean, is it because we're human of habits and years of have a systematic way of operating, having a business, office, employees show up on time? Doesn't matter if it takes you an hour, 2 hours to get to the office, traffic and all of that. Or there's a snow, there's a accident on the highway, or the bridge is closed, the tunnel is closed, and all of these delays that really could add not just our production and our value to contribute to the business, also it's a lot in our stress and health because we literally wasting time in that travel, going and coming back.
So the answer is yes, somewhat, but I'll expand on it. So, in pandemic, a lot of companies learn how to work with remote staff, but I'd say that most of the learnings were for remote staff from the same country, and whenever you hire people from the same country, there's cultural nuances. There's a way to do things that made it all work, right? So we're all in a remote working mode that now allow us as U.S. companies to work remotely with other people. Having said that, one would think that hiring offshore or nearshore, you can follow the same exact way to do things, and the answer is not quite, right? There are some distinctions and differences, and we'll go through this because we've actually created what we call the remote intelligence framework that will allow us to expand into what the death trap is and how the remote intelligence framework allows you to avoid it. But so as not to expand too much initially on the question, the answer, Bob, is hiring remotely, whether in India, in Mexico, in Colombia, in wherever, outside of the U.S. is not the same, and people have to go into these projects understanding that it takes a different, slightly or harshly, depending on a person's ability to be flexible, but it takes a different mindset than if you were hiring consultants in the US. And most people don't treat it differently. And because they don't, they end up falling into the remote team death trap because they're dealing with people as if they were, 50 miles down the road, but they're not. They're
In the other side of the globe.
potentially, right? Or 800 miles away, or it could be 16,000 miles, it could be 800. Crossing a border, even though it lowers costs, it also requires a certain a differentiation in the set of skill sets. I hope
More of a micromanagement. More.
So it starts from the hiring, Bob. It's here in the U.S. there's a way to hire, and in Mexico or Colombia or India there's a slightly different way to hire. All you got to do is take a look at resumes. So resumes in the U.S. tend to follow one structure, but resumes in India look like encyclopedias, right? I mean, in the U.S. they tend to be one, maybe 2 pages with highlights, and in India they go into the detail that is culturally accepted, and it's sometimes overwhelming for people in the U.S. to hire there. In Latin America, there's a slightly different way to do it, which is sort of in between both of them. So it starts from the where do you find the people? How do you talk to people? How do you convince them to work for you across borders? How do you give them a vision for what they're going to be doing? Because nobody wants to be a transactional employee, right? A lot of people, when hiring remotely, consider, look, I'm going to pay them good money. I'm going to pay them more than they're making locally. So I don't have to treat them the way that I would treat my U.S. employees, giving them a vision and giving them a long-term plan and giving them sort of a career. I can just, this is transactional. All I have to do is pay them a couple bucks more than they make locally. And nothing could be further from the truth. If you want
Correct.
missionaries instead of mercenaries, then you have to treat people like missionaries. And in order to treat people like missionaries, then the mindset is a little different, especially again, when you have remote teams crossing cross borders.
A very interesting point, really, and I would say a very educational and insightful. Lois, if you don't mind, we go back a bit just to talk about your Jack B, and how did you manage to grow it, and then you exited, correct? What strategies you took, and I say, it's not easy. Everybody, it's then said and done. Oh, let's have a startup. Sure, okay, form a company. It takes 5 minutes. But not just about the company. It's about the vision. Are you solving a problem? There's a need for it. And do you have a plan to grow and to exit? That's another, because now you are actually getting outside interest. If somebody see even further picture than you have and you see.
Right. So, in order to tell you about Jack B, I'm going to sort of walk even a bit further back. I have to admit, I think I'm just a natural entrepreneur. I've never taken a job that someone gave me. I always created a job for myself. I think my father was the example. My father, even though he was a certified public accountant, he too had his own CPA firm. And then when that sort of when we moved from Mexico to the U.S., which is a different story, then he had to start over and couldn't be a CPA anymore, and he was an entrepreneur. So I think I took a lot of learnings from him. I remember even when I was 9 or 10 years old, we used to cross the border a lot. I grew up in San Diego, and we used to cross the border to Tijuana a lot in the mid-'70s, early '80s. And whenever we would cross, I would buy Mexican candy because it's different. Nowadays, a lot of it is here in the U.S., but back then, none of it was. So I'd buy Mexican candy and take it to school and sell it. So you could even say that I was being entrepreneurial when I was 9 or 10, and even nearshoring, right? Nearshoring the candy supply. The principal shut it down when they realized that the kids were spending all their money on candy and not on lunch. But that's a different story. We'll cover it later or at some other time. And ever since then I've been an entrepreneur. So First company I officially started was when I was 19, an import-export company with my father. He was my business partner. Then a huge economic uprest happened. We were living in Mexico. We had moved back to Mexico. Happened in late 1994. Huge devaluation, huge almost depression in Mexico. And with that, the business that we had sort of failed, and we had to start over again. And I started a direct sales company where we sold housewares, giving a type of consumer credit, and grew it from zero, where we literally, my brother and I took the pictures, 32 pictures for our first catalog that we photocopied, to a company that had 35,000 distributors throughout Mexico selling. And you know, all of that was built, as you said, just to solve a problem. People still wanted to buy housewares and didn't have the ability to do it, so giving them consumer credit was important, and figuring out all those things, you know, how a solution happened. And it was there, once we had a pretty large scale, we were spending, back then toll-free numbers, you know, were very expensive, especially in Mexico. We were spending, I believe, $25,000-$30,000 on phone bills a month on our toll-free number, right? Because people would call in to place the orders and to do all that. And this is early 2000s, and I had heard about something called the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked my brother, who was studying computer science at one of Mexico's universities, you know, can we use this internet thing to lower our phone bill? And to make a very long story short, he created the first few pages with a unique type of user experience that allowed people to sort of place their orders on the internet through dial-up, mind you, right, on 2888 modems. This is back in the day, and doing that, lowering our bills. So, you know, I sort of said to my brother, dude, you know, this is great. Who sells this stuff? And he said, no, we created it. Jacob, dude, I love you, but you know, you're not Bill Gates. So someone probably came up with this, and we did some research, and it turns out that nobody ever had. So realized that what we had was something that could help not only us but other people. And so that's how Jackbee came into existence. We sort of took the technology, let my father and brother sort of continue with the direct sales company, and my brother Jacob and I started this company in order to sell the technology.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Really, very inspiring, actually. Lois, take it going forward to our time. You know, remote work, even a lot of the big corporations, Fortune 500 companies, you just mentioned Bill Gates, from Microsoft to Apple, a lot of their support, more than just support, it's all overseas, I would say. And they went as far as actually having their own teams overseas. Like, you know what, we're not going to just go hire blindly. We're just going to also have our own buildings, our own teams, our own crew. Yes, with the standards, the pay, and all of with the standards of the other companies. So, you know, and they see a lot of the corporations see an opportunity, and you know, and there's a misunderstanding over here, and I noticed it years ago that, you know, oh, they're taking our jobs. No, these are labor jobs. Nobody's taking them. Actually, we should be blessed that there's other people doing the labor jobs and willing to do these labor jobs. It's actually the corporate jobs, the more highly intelligent job, the more tech jobs, the more service, support, customer service, you know, all of that. It's all that's over there already. You know, why? I don't know. Is it because people value their work and have more work ethics? They value the dollar. They take their work more seriously. And is that going to continue? Where's that going?
Yeah, with AI coming, you know, is it going to continue? It's up in the air, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but rather than going into that polemic, I'll answer the rest of your question, because we could sit here and talk about AI and and the direction and what's going to happen.
No, we always talk about AI. I mean, this is the perfect show for it. Actually, we always yes. So please,
we'll touch on AI in a second.
Yeah.
So to the comment that you're making, the answer is absolutely. A lot of large companies have been using offshore, nearshore talent for many years.
Correct.
They saw it as a way to lower costs, right? Because the wage standards and the cost of living that exist in the U.S. or in Europe, Canada, tend to make it, if you want to hire people to do support or some basic jobs, the amount that you're going to pay is such that you could potentially hire
a
people
team
that are going to be better suited or better educated and still pay a lot less. Just for you to get an idea, Bob, the comparison in Latin America, which is where we specialize, hiring a position in Latin America, if you were to compare the same position, it's about savings of anywhere from 40 to 70%. So if you could hire 3 people for the cost of one, why not do it, right? And if in addition you could get someone that is potentially either better educated, or smarter is very subjective. But let's just say someone that's better suited for the job while saving 70%. So you could get 3 smarter people or 3 smarter people than one, then it would make all the sense in the world.
Absolutely.
Having said that, I do have to say that sort of evolved, and the story at Jackby, which I began to tell you about, is one where we realized that it wasn't only about the support jobs, but actually letting people remotely take care of core jobs is sort of the evolution. So today, nearshore, there are a ton of the jobs that you're talking about, support, sales development representatives, all those things. But you'll also find thousands or hundreds of thousands of people that are now involved as part of the engineering teams, and they're deeply integrated and ingrained. But if I could, I'll just say one difference. But the companies that tend to get it right are those companies, the larger companies, like you said, right? The Microsofts of the world, the Oracles of the world, the very large companies that have a very strong company culture, that have been doing remote for many, many years. And because of that, they have very strong processes about how to hire, how to onboard, how to integrate, what kind of support to provide. And the fact that now with Zoom and Slack and all these things, the technological bar for having people working remotely has been lowered. Now, small and medium enterprises want to get into the game of hiring people remotely for 70% savings. Why not? I mean, if we all want to lower our costs.
Correct.
And if we can again hire smart people, and by the way, have more people available, because with unemployment, as you know, especially for well-educated people in our country, in the U.S., having it be at 3-4%, then the availability, talent, there's always a talent war. So there's way more availability in Latin America, and you can still save a lot more. But if you're not one of those large companies that has all those processes in place, that's where you end up in the remote team death trap, because you don't know how to do it correctly. You still want to do it. You need to do it. You've made up your mind. As an executive, I want to save 70%. So, I go whole hog on it. I do it, and then I find myself failing. Right? So that's sort of what's there and what we see.
Interesting topic that I want to talk to you about, and something you deal with called the burned executive, market. So can we dive into that a bit?
Sure. If I could, before I do that, I think you were asking in the previous question, if I could go back about
please
entrepreneurial to dive a bit more, and if I could, I'll just state, the entrepreneurs today, and I meet a ton. I mean solopreneurs. I mean there tends to be there seems to be a trend where a lot more people, again, given the ability to be solopreneurs or to sort of scale smaller companies to larger sizes, that there tends to be the desire to do that a lot more, and with that come a lot of challenges that people are now facing. So the desire to be entrepreneurial, I think, back in the at least when I started my career in the early 90s, even early 2000s, it was sort of there, but you were unique. Nowadays, I would almost posit that the uniqueness is sort of worn out, but the ability to sort of support one's desires and one's vision with different frameworks and different ways of doing things is a natural. Which is, by the way, why I wrote the book, right? A book that we're about to launch called Remote Intelligence, and it's sort of the framework that I'm describing. Haven't delved too much into it yet, but a framework that we've discovered through many years of remote work is really what we're promoting in the book. And mind you, it's not a framework that we do or that we can do. We certainly do it, but it's a framework that anyone can sort of adopt and do it in order for the remote team death trap not to be instilled. I think I hadn't said that, and it's important for your listeners because this isn't a promotion of our services. Certainly that's a service we provide, but it's more a promotion of if people want to be successful in hiring remotely, then they can do it by following the remote intelligence framework.
Amazing. Yes.
Now, if you'd like, I can answer the previous question about the
yes, that's
Great.
very intriguing. Yes.
Yeah.
Intriguing title.
So the burnt executive tends to be more. It's the person that's experiencing the death trap. So think about, I'm either an executive at a mid-market firm or at a small firm, and I've come to the decision that I want to nearshore a bunch of the tasks that I'm currently doing as a way to save the 60-70% that can be saved. So, I make the decision, and then I basically look at hiring people, and typically what we run into is people that are hiring 1099s, right? Consultants that are working for them remotely, and so they look for them on LinkedIn or on one of the job boards. They hire them, or they interview them, they hire them, then they onboard them in a contractor way, because ultimately if they're a contractor, it's not a whole lot of value add. So rather than go through the whole thing, they do everything the same way that they would do with the U.S. contractor, and then it turns out that the project begins to fail, and they're stuck in the why is this not working? It must be this this damn foreign contractor, and the answer is yes. But it's also, the onus is also on on the executive, because the executive hasn't taken the time to understand how best to work with remote talent. And it's that the interaction between the consultants, the foreign consultants, and the executive that leads to burnout, because you've made a decision, right? The decision is weighs highly on the person that made it, as you know, right? I mean, business decisions require certain level of maturity, and you as an executive want it to be successful, and you just keep going down around and around and around, getting rid of a consultant, bringing another one in, thinking that it must be the consultant, so let me get rid of this one and bring in someone. And as Einstein said, right? I mean, lunacy is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that leads to a portion of burnout. Certainly not everything, but it adds a fair amount of stress to it. That's what we mean by the burnt executive.
Lois, you pioneered radical transparency in the industry known for hidden markups, and it's also in many other industries, unfortunately. You believe in open pricing, knowing exactly what your remote team members. Can we talk about that, please?
Sure. Radical transparency breeds radical trust. When you are clear in what you are charging, how much you are paying, and and what your margins are, it creates the ability for companies to speak openly. Everything from I buy tennis shoes from or sneakers, not tennis shoes. That's the wrong old-fashioned word. So I buy sneakers from a company that today lays out the cost of materials. Right? Here's how much the leather costs. Here's how much the rubber costs. Here's how much. So this is my cost. This is what I make, and in doing that, I know that I'm getting a good deal. I know how much I'm paying for the leather, and compare that to the companies that have a black box and try to lower the quality as much as possible in order to charge as much as possible, and you end up sort of shifting away from those companies after a while and going to the companies that have a transparent pricing. I'd say that in the line of work where we are, which is the staffing arena, it makes even more sense to be transparent. And the reason why is, and imagine this, if you will. So I'm one of these burned executives, right? But the problem is still there, and now my reputation is on the line. I need to solve the problem, so I go to an IT services firm. I decided I can't do this on my own, so I'm going to go to an IT services firm. And the IT services firms tend to have black box pricing. So they will take people off the bench, right? Well, what do you need, Bob? You need a couple of Java developers and and a data scientist. Here's this guy, here's this guy, here's this guy. They have them on the bench, and they'll throw them on your project, and they'll bill you. They'll say, here's how much these two are going to charge you per hour, and here's how much this one. And ultimately, you as the burn executive, sort of acquiesce and say, yeah, it's still savings. It doesn't save me as much as I was going to save myself if I did it on my own, but it's still savings. And then imagine 6 months later, the resource comes to you and hints that, Bob, of the $5,000 per month that they're billing you, I only get 1,000, right? And now you're sort of shocked at the margins that these people make. You're also shocked at the fact that they're paying less for their talent that you were paying on your own, because they have the leverage to be able to do it. And then lastly, it also misaligns the objectives, because all you can say, Bob, is you say to the resource or to the person who's working for you, I'm sorry, I don't make the decisions about how much you're getting paid. So the person's going to go back to the IT services company and say, hey, I need to make money. I just had a child, I blah blah blah. I need to make more money. And then the company's going to say, yeah, you know what? Well, Bob doesn't pay us enough in order for me to pay you more. So it now creates a situation where this person thinks that you're sort of a miser, and because you don't want to pay more, then the person can't make more, and it creates a mindset that misaligns the objectives. Imagine transparency. So in our case, the way that we promote transparency is, if you're going to hire someone, first of all, we don't have a bench to lower costs, and we can get into that in a second. But secondly is, whenever we say, here's Jose, and you can hire Jose, and here's how much he's going to make, and here's Mariana, and here's how much she's going to make, and you can always verify with them how much they're going to make, and then we'll agree on a markup. For us, it's not a percentage, it's a flat fee, right? That we will charge in order to to found the person and bill you on a month-to-month basis and manage the relationship and whatnot. But now the person is beholden to you and perfectly aligned to you, because he knows that his well-being is your well-being. The more that he works, the more that you're going to want to pay him, and we don't make more if the person makes more. So the transparency and a business model that deals with transparency creates a win-win-win scenario for us, and I'd almost say that for most companies.
The remote intelligence book, is it available everywhere?
It's coming out in a few weeks. Not sure when the podcast will be.
So let's promote it. Let's promote it. Talk about it for a second and give it a big push and promotion. And we'll have the podcast before release, before about a week before the book. So this way it aligns at the same time.
Great, awesome.
Yes.
So then the book will be coming out in a few weeks. So by the
Good.
time you hear this, probably a week prior. And the remote intelligence book, as I said, what it deals with is it's a deep dive into remote is an acronym, REMOTE, and I'll get into what the acronym means. But each element has been designed to sort of work against the remote team death trap that ends up burning executives. Let me go into it. So the R stands for rigorous talent selection, right? And this eliminates the talent mirage, right? The way to hire in Latin America, as I've already indicated earlier, is a bit different. The way you screen people, the way you talk to people, the way you have to share the vision, the way you have to sell the vision is different, whether slightly or hugely, than the way that people hire in the U.S. So the R is for rigorous talent selection and how to go about that. The E is for expert onboarding and integration. So this is about how companies can bridge the cultural chasm so that, it's not only, hey, there you are, right, get to work, right? You have to figure out a way to integrate people. The M is for managed support and services. How do you provide the right level of support for people that are working across borders, whether it's providing benefits, whether it's providing computers or any other type of infrastructure, support, right? There are emergencies for employees. Any entrepreneur executive that has employees will tell you there's a lot of stuff that happens and stuff that you don't know. So you have to be able to provide the right level of support and services. So that's the M. The O is for optimized team performance, right? So it's about creating or helping create the feedback loops that feed into performance systems so that you can get the most out of your remote team. The T, we already spoke about, transparent cost plus.
Transparency, yeah.
So, it's eliminating the markup deceptions that typically exist. And the E is sort of the conclusion. If you're able to do the REMOT, then what you get is enhanced scalability and growth, Bob. So it's escaping the bottlenecks, the death trap, by doing the other elements correctly in order for a company to be able to achieve what they set out to, right? No one wants to hire remotely or hire period just for the sake of it. They want to do it in order to enhance their scalability and growth. That is the objective. So by doing this correctly and integrating them into your local team, you're able to achieve it.
Lois, what lessons that you learn throughout your career that you'll pass on to other entrepreneurs, from a startup to a CEO? Leadership lessons, I would say.
Wow. Look, I think the biggest one is every founder, first-time founder or first-time entrepreneur goes into this thinking about, I'm the hero. They think of themselves as a superhero that can and will solve every problem, right? And the biggest lesson is, if there's a problem that you or that one has identified and you can solve it, that's great, but it doesn't mean that it's only you, right, that can solve it. It's about changing the mindset for being a heroic founder to being a heroic builder of teams. Because whether we like it or not, a team is always going to do a better job, than one person, if you find the right team, if you integrate them correctly. So, my biggest lesson in entrepreneurship if you find a problem, that's great. Focus, deliver results. But then there comes a moment where you're going to have to sort of grow, and there are different ways to grow. Creating the right systems, having the right support system or support network to allow you to grow and do this correctly is certainly something that for founders I would motivate them to take into consideration.
Interesting. What is next for Lois and for Nir-Yu?
So what is next for the world? We're all trying to get a grip on AI, as we've said, and artificial intelligence is certainly creating an upheaval in a lot of jobs, right? A lot of jobs. The CEO of Anthropic, who runs Claude, basically said that they view that a lot of starting jobs over the next years are going to go the way of the dodo, right? They're going to disappear. If that's true, then a lot of the jobs that one would want to farm out remotely may also be disappearing because of AI. Now, whether that happens or doesn't happen, that's up for discussion, and whether it happens in 6 months or 6 years, that goes up for discussion. But, certainly AI is going to impact everything, all of us, right? Instead of hosting, I heard, by the way, yesterday, I heard that one could now run a podcast and program a host for a podcast to interview a guest. So, you're according to what I heard yesterday, Bob, even you are at risk of being eliminated through AI. So, I am, you are, a lot of the jobs are. So what's going to happen? Nobody knows. A lot of soul searching, a lot of there's also a lot of hype. So look, I'll be there saying we are about to face probably some of the greatest challenges that humanity has ever faced.
Well, certain things we have to be careful not to lose. A podcast meant for interaction, two humans talking. It's like we just met at a convention or a lobby of a hotel or where there's a convention, we're just having a coffee and we're having a conversation. So if we really allow ourselves to lose this, because it's all up to us, I think. Yes, technology is inevitable. Certain things are going to change. We're going to go with it. Absolutely. Normal. Yes, that's part of, evolving and going forward. But certain things I think we cannot, lose. What's next? Robotic friends and robotic wife and girlfriend and robotic.
Yes, these are the types of decisions that we're going to face. You basically hit it on the head. How much can be automated? How much can't? And
well, I heard about getting that actually women don't have to get pregnant anymore. Now there's a womb will be robotically, or I should say AI robotically carried for 9 months, and the baby developed, and I'm like, okay.
We are living a sci-fi movie, or we're about to live a sci-fi movie. That is.
So everything can become manufactured. Everything can become you created. We become gods of our own. Then we're gonna.
It would certainly seem so, right?
Yeah.
So the decisions that as humans and humanity we make over the next 3 to 5 years are going to. It always has an impact, but it feels like we have to hold on to that. Agreed.
Yes, Lois, really a pleasure having you on the show. Extremely insightful and educational, I would say. I want to thank you for joining us today on Innovate presents Entrepreneurs in Tech. Be sure to connect with us on social media. Until next time, keep innovating and always think outside the box and stay curious. Anything you'd like to say to our audience, Lois, before we say goodbye?
Thank you, Bob, for the opportunity. Thank you for listening.
My pleasure.
And look me up on LinkedIn. I'm there. Feel free to reach out, and look for the book on Amazon. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share. Innovate presents Entrepreneurs in Tech podcast. And if you're joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.